and he joins us from The Athletic, big-time friend of the show. Keith Law, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, we're great. I mean, last night notwithstanding, the baseball we've watched for the 10 games previous to that since the trade deadline have been unbelievable. I mean, just the difference in this team with Josh Naylor and Gino Suarez, even though he hasn't hit, my God, it's like a completely different ball club than I've watched for 16 years here.
I mean, that's probably a coincidence, right? I don't think the addition of those guys has materially changed the other players on the roster, but I understand what you're saying, too. They're starting to play a little bit. I would say they're playing more up to their potential. I saw our friend Joe Sheehan in his newsletter, he did a re-ranking of all the teams in baseball. He had the Mariners as the top team in the American League. I couldn't argue with that. I actually think they've got a pretty good argument to be best team in the AL, and I would say I don't love saying there's a World Series favorite or a pennant favorite, but they would be my pick right now. If you asked me, who do you think is going to go to the World Series in the American League, I would lean towards the Mariners. Particularly, I think we've discussed this before. I think their starting pitching is going to really set them apart if they get to October.
Probably a fun little debate in something you just said there. You don't know if those additions materially change any other player, but what if they change their role? What if they don't feel like they've got to swing out of their shoes? What if they feel like J.P. Crawford's better in the 8th spot than he is some of the other? Do you think there is something to that it actually can put the guys in different roles and different positions to make them materially better?
If it's a matter of moving a guy to a different, say, defensive position, if you were saying, we acquired a real shortstop, so the guy we had at shortstop can go play a position where he's more capable or more comfortable, that I think is real. I don't think the idea of hitters hitting differently based on where they are in the order, that isn't a thing. I don't think it's a major league level. I don't think it's a thing. I don't think it should be a thing. To me, if you've got hitters who are like, well, I can't hit in the 2nd spot, but I can hit in the 8th, I mean, that comes down to a question about the makeup of the hitter and maybe on the coaching staff too. Like, dude, your job is to hit. I don't care where you are in the order.
Hey, what did you make of the deals they did make? We talked to you just before they made those trades. What did you make of what they gave up for Naylor, what they gave up for Gino Suarez, and then I guess what they gave up for Caleb Ferguson as well?
They gave up nothing. I mean, honestly, I could not get over how they made all those additions and didn't touch any of the top prospects in their system. We were talking about guys with maybe a chance to be competent major league relievers at some point. I really thought one of the bigger prospects, I mean, not a Colt Emerson say, but one of their bigger name prospects would end up somewhere else at the deadline, which we've seen them do before, right? To get over Rosarena, they traded 2 pretty good prospects. And this year they didn't have to trade any of those guys. I think a little bit it was taking on money. A little bit of it, too, was just we didn't see a lot of big prospects change teams at all. Only one guy who was on my top 100, Leo DeVries, because, of course, A.J. Preller did it, was traded at the deadline. There were a couple other guys of some note, but who were prospects with maybe upside but question marks. But what the Mariners gave up in those deals was – I saw one of them and texted somebody I knew at the Mariners and said, essentially, is that it? And that's pretty good, actually. And everyone said this was going to be a seller's market. Prices were going to be high, but that didn't actually turn out to be the case, certainly not for the Mariners.
So the only question I would have to follow up on that is if none of your top-tier guys change teams at all, should the Mariners have gone a little harder then on either Duran or Jax or Bednar, one of the sort of leverage arms that change teams? If no, I thought the Phillies had given up a fair amount. Should they have tried to beat some of those deals?
So they were the next 2. Honestly, if I ranked all, I didn't do this. Thank God I didn't do this. Would have been a miserable exercise. But if I had ranked all the prospects who changed teams at the deadline, DeVries would have obviously been one. I think the 2 prospects the Phillies traded for Duran, Eduardo Taiit, a catcher who may not catch but who can really hit, and then Mick Abel, starting pitcher, who's been up and down this year, and it's great stuff, and he's just never thrown strikes anywhere in his professional career to this point. I don't even have a good explanation why I've seen this guy. I'm like, well, he should throw strikes. Looks like he should throw strikes, and he just hasn't done so. Those guys might be 2 and 3. So I would say if you take Duran out of the equation, because for the Mariners to top that, it would have been a pretty high price. If the Phillies paid a high price, they're probably banking on Duran is immediate. He's already the closer. They love him here already. And they have multiple years of control remaining, which I'm sure the Phillies factored in. Could they have gone harder after Bednar? Probably. But Bednar's track record's pretty up and down the last year or so. I don't think he's sort of that don't love the idea of the lockdown closer. I would say more like he is a good high leverage reliever, but comes with some risk. And he's not as good as Duran. So would you trade Cole Young? This is the guy I think we talked about last time. I said I thought for sure they would end up trading him. Would you trade a Cole Young and his upside as an everyday second baseman to get David Bednar? I would not, personally.
No chance. I mean, I don't think you can take him out of this lineup. He looks like he's going to be the starting second baseman here, Keith, for the next 6 to 10 years, depending.
Well, that's, to me, then, if they end up in the situation I described last time, where it's just they have so many middle infielders coming, and maybe he makes someone else, maybe Celestin, who I love, obviously, but maybe he becomes someone they consider trading in a blockbuster deal. Or if everything works out and Emerson is speeding towards the majors as a shortstop and Celestin looks like he's going to stay in the middle infield and he's getting closer, imagine how valuable Young would be 2 years in if he is a solid, average, everyday second baseman and they need something, right? Probably a power hitter, because that's pretty much always what this club is looking for. It's the one thing they haven't developed particularly well. I don't think they draft those guys all that much. So it's I think it's more philosophical. They really seem to focus on guys who can hit first, and they hope the power comes later. So maybe they're going out to get a 30-homer guy at some point, and Young might be an extremely valuable piece in a trade like that, or he makes someone else more trade.
Mariners pretty clear, Keith, that they are a draft, develop, and trade organization. This is just kind of a wheelhouse question for you that I have no idea on if what's happened this year is the norm around baseball or it just speaks to their draft and develop. But Sloan gets moved up to Everett. Senja gets moved up from Everett to Double A. Montez moves up to Double A. Emerson moves up to Double A. All throughout this season, they are been, their top prospects. Most of them have advanced in season. Is that the norm in baseball?
It is almost too much so, in the sense, and this isn't really about the Mariners, but the other day the Guardians did a whole batch of promotions. They moved Travis Bazzana, who was first, played out at Oregon State, first pick in the draft last year. They moved him up to AAA. He's been fine at AA. He hasn't been bad, but he certainly hasn't played well enough to merit a promotion. They took their first rounder from the year before, Ralphie Velasquez, moved him up from high A to Double A, and I went, did I miss something here? He's not hit well at all. Just looking at the White Sox low A roster, because they're coming through my area next week, and they have one prospect I wanted to see, and there's another one. Oh, I'll go see him. Oh, no, he's gone. He had a 680-something OPS. I don't love OPS, but it's hard to, right? That's not good. There's no way to sugarcoat that. But they moved him up anyway. And I feel like there's become a big thing for a variety. This week could have a whole 20-minute conversation on this. But teams are often promoting guys too quickly. And I don't think that's often the right thing for their development. Now, Sloan should have been promoted. That made sense. Emerson should have been promoted. That made sense. Montez should have been promoted. The only one of those I had some questions about was Cincha. We've talked about him. There's just developmental things he's got to work on, but he's super talented. And I'm sure he's going to do well enough in Double A. It's never going to look like a bad idea that they promoted him. I just might have held him back a little longer to work on. I just don't think he should be switch pitching anymore. That's the number one thing.
Hey, they had 9 guys on the new MLB Pipeline Top 100, which is pretty incredible. Would your list have looked similar to that? I know you do it your own way, and I don't expect them to, but do you think they've got 9 legitimate top 100 prospects, even after graduating Cole Young?
Probably. I don't have to apologize. I don't have their list in front of me, but like Emerson, Celestin, Cincha, Sloan, Montez,
Ford, Farmelo. Ford is a borderline guy for me. Yeah. I think there's a lot of questions about him. If he can't catch, and a lot of scouts are like, it's just not good. And even the Mariners have said, we're never sure. It's always going to be a work in progress or for a long time. But the guy they just drafted, Anderson, clearly, he was on my midseason top 60. I think they had 5 or 6 on my midseason top 60. And other than Ford, I think all those guys would be pretty comfortably top 100. Even though I haven't sat down and done the full exercise, I feel pretty good about all of those. Ford, I think, has stalled. He's something. He has major league value somewhere, but if he's not an everyday catcher, I don't know where he plays. And the bat is not good enough for him to DH. One of the things I thought was interesting, as our friend Jason Churchill pointed out, that they had, guys as high as, I think, 11, Colt Emerson, as low as 97, Celestine. He said, you know what? Looking at this list of 9 guys, it wouldn't even be that surprising if you reversed the list and said that Celestine was in the top 10 and the other guy was like that they have that many guys that have that much maybe variance in terms of what they're expected to, their ceiling.
Yes, I think that's true. And I think I have Celestine in my top 20 or 25. Like, I think he's a star. He hasn't had a star level year, but he's also really young. He didn't play a lot coming into this year. But the reason I think you see that high variance is so many of their top prospects, other Anderson and Cynthia are the ones who I think don't fit this. They were high school drafts or they were international free agents. And Cynthia is kind of unusual for a college guy because he was relatively, I hate to say raw, but he's not Kate Anderson, right? Kate Anderson, super polished, best pitcher, led Division I in strikeouts, got the multiple pitches, got the delivery. Cynthia was more, arm strength, kind of a big wild card with the switch pitching thing, and does he have the command from the right side, but he's super athletic. He was always going to take more time. So I feel like he's a little bit on that bubble. Anderson is the only one I think of there. I don't know who their 9 were exactly. I think he's the only one who was a straight college draft, who was sort of what you see is what you get. And obviously that's really good, but you don't see the variance. Nobody's disagreeing widely on what we think Kate Anderson.
In your lifetime of doing this, have you ever felt the Mariners organization from the major league level? We were looking at their AAA lineup last night. It's got like 7, 8 guys that have had some time in the big leagues, the AA level, these guys, the 9 Have you ever felt the Mariners organization brimming with this much depth and talent?
No, that's a pretty easy question. Because there were points where I had them as one of the worst farm systems in baseball. Have I ever had them as one of the best before the last 18 months? I don't think so. Maybe 20 years ago, which I just say that hesitantly because that's literally a lifetime ago. My daughter's 19, so it's her life, it's not mine. But it's hard to remember exactly where I had a system at that point. But also, that would have been actually years, and we just don't talk about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
What they're doing is pretty, the whole thing and doing it where you say, hey, they could win the American League and they've got this kind of an organization and there's maybe more. It's really pretty remarkable. One of the guys that I did not know a lot about, Josh Naylor, before he arrived here. I'm not sure I still know a lot about Josh Naylor other than that I love watching him play. What do you make of him? Because he seems like somebody where the scouting report and the stats might be a little bit mixed or might not agree with each other all the time?
What he does really well is mash right-handed pitching with power, pretty good. Has always kind of been a weak spot for him, enough that you might platoon him, but you don't have to platoon him. He's kind of on that borderline. Obviously, platooning a guy at first base with another, if you have another first base or DH only type, that's not great for roster management. So he's kind of on that cusp for me. And I think there's always been some disagreement of where he fits best defensively. Folks I know who've been around him with multiple organizations now, because he's obviously been traded a few times, always said he's a better athlete than you think. He moves better than you think. But people see the body type and assume he's not very athletic. And I think he's better at first base than he's gotten credit for. I remember when they tried him in the outfield, the Marlins tried him in the outfield, and that was a non-starter for me. But you got to try it and see what it looks like, right? You need that flexibility. I don't think he's awful at first base. Obviously, you could probably find somebody better defensively at first, but I think that more than makes up for anything he's costing you with the glove.
It's funny because you look at him, I expect to see like 35, 40 home runs a year. I expected to see like a Matt Stairs kind of a player.
Yeah.
But he's not at all when you watch him. I mean, he's a smart hitter. He's a good contact hitter. I've really just been incredibly impressed watching him, in addition to the 12 stolen bases he's had or something since he's gotten here. But the other part that he brings, and I don't know how much time you spend focusing on this, is that's just a guy with a lot of edge. And there aren't that many ball players today who have the red ass like he does, who's got that amount of edge. Do you look for stuff like that? Do you think that has value in a team trying to make a playoff run?
I do think there's something there. I like guys who compete. I like guys who play hard, but smart. Right? There's a random prospect. I mean, not random anymore. Nate George, an outfielder in the Orioles system, came to mind because he just got promoted the other day. We were just talking about promotion. I posted a video on Blue Sky of this guy just scoring from second on a routine base hit. And he looked like a train coming to the plate. Like he was running so hard. And he runs like that all the time. And he's just a super, they got him in the 16th round. He might turn out to be an amazing scouting story. But I like that guy more because it's energy all the time. Doesn't matter the score, doesn't matter the situation. He's not doing dumb stuff. He's not running into outs. But he will play hard. He will give you a good at-bat. He will run everything out. He's got some power, and he knows how to use it already really well for a 19-year-old. It all works together. I don't mean like dating myself. Remember Luis Polonia, who ran hard all the time, directly into outs, right? That doesn't count. But if you're smart about it, if your at-bats are good, Naylor is a guy where has he hit 30 home runs once, I think, in his career?
I think once.
He looks like a guy once, right? I totally agree. And that's when he was drafted. That's what people thought he was going to be, was big power, and we'll see what what the package turns out to be. I'm okay with a guy giving back a little bit of power if he's using it to get a better approach. He's getting on base more. Not everybody has to pull the ball in the air 90% of the time. I understand that's what I can't believe I'm saying this. That's what analytics say to do. It's okay to vary up your approach a little bit because pitchers are going to figure that out and they're going to pitch to you differently.
Hey, last thing for me here, Keith, is I asked you earlier about the Mariners organization. How about amongst their peers? How many other teams' situation at the major league level, the minor league level, the farm system, how many would you trade for the Mariners? How many have it better than what's going on right now in Seattle?
Didn't I have them one? I think I had them one coming into the season. I could say who's in their echelon among farm systems. Boston, certainly. They've done a really good job with some drafting and development stuff. Coming into the year, it was much more on the hitting side. They've actually seen real progress from a lot of their arms this year, which is obviously great to see. The Dodgers always the Dodgers have just pulled some stuff off too. Later draft picks, trades. They get a guy from the Reds who was kind of maybe a fourth outfielder prospect, and now he's in my top 60 because spending 3 months with the Dodgers is apparently all it takes. They sprinkle their Dodger fairy dust on guys. It just happens. That might be it in terms of that very top tier. We'll see in a couple months once we get through all these guys who just got drafted and guys come over from the Dominican play in these unofficial bridge leagues that are happening in Arizona and Florida. I get more new scouting reports on a lot of guys once that all wraps up. But right now I would say that's probably your top three in some order.
Last thing for me, and we only have about a minute here, and then we're actually turning it over to the Mariners for their pregame show and then early game against Baltimore today. But what are your thoughts on how long it would take to get a starting pitcher ready to pitch out of the pen for the playoffs? And the Mariners have 2 or 3 of those guys. I mean, since they didn't go out and get a Duran or someone like that, it could be Emerson Hancock. It could be Bryce Miller. It could be Logan Evans. I mean, they've got a lot of really good deep starting pitching. What is your process or thoughts on turning those guys into relievers for the short term?
Understanding it varies pitcher by pitcher, but I would say about 2 weeks. And with the caveat that I would not ask such a pitcher to pitch on back-to-back days in the postseason because he just hasn't done it. And I think that is asking a lot for a guy whose entire routine for years, maybe his whole life, has been around starting, to ask him to pitch back-to-back and maintain his fitness, in addition to maybe not getting him hurt, is probably a lot. The other direction obviously takes much longer. But what you're talking about, teams used to do that all the time. I just think as pitchers have thrown harder and roles have become more specialized, it might be a little more involved, but it's extremely doable. And the guys you're talking about should all be able to make that conversion.
They could be some dudes too, huh? I mean, like the idea of Emerson Hancock coming in for an inning in the 7th and 2-pitch pitcher instead of trying to throw 3 or 4. Pretty exciting. Pretty fun times.
Bumping 100 in that role.
Yeah.
So, I think it makes a ton of sense for pick your guys who are better suited to that role. And obviously they have a surfeit of starters so they can do that.
Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it. Getting you before and after the deadline. Really valuable from our perspective to see where the Mariners are at. And pretty fun times here in Seattle. So thank you, as always. Make sure you guys read Keith's stuff in The Athletic and everywhere else where you can find him, whether it's about board games or whatever it is that's on Keith's mind. Guitar, baseball. He's a multifaceted human. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
There you go. The great Keith Law.